Our assessment is called the Hand-Tool Dexterity Test, created by George K. Bennett. This assessment is designed for anyone who plans to use tools occupationally or recreationally and measures manual dexterity independent of intellectual factors, specifically using ordinary mechanics tools. The purpose of this assessment is to help employers determine the skill set of those applying for specific jobs that require tool use and helps in clinic with determining progress with fine motor coordination and strength. This assessment has been constructed to provide a measure of proficiency in using ordinary mechanics tools. The ability measured by this test is a combination of aptitude and of achievement based on past experience with handling tools.
The Bennett Hand-Tool Dexterity Test costs between $300 and $500, depending on the source of purchase, which also includes the manual. Sources include, but are not limited to, Health Products for You, Lafayette Evaluation, Walmart, and the Drug Supply Store. This assessment is best for use with subjects of high school age to adulthood who plan to use tools occupationally or recreationally, such as factory workers, mechanics, or home servicers like electricians or plumbers. The assessment is best used with a population who has experience with tools and wants to use these fine motor skills again.
Naturally, the Hand-Tool Dexterity Test focuses on the occupation of work, specifically on job performance and maintenance. This test requires a level of various client factors. Each examinee should be able to remember the instructions that were given at the beginning of the assessment in order to adhere to them throughout the entire test. Being able to use their hands in feeling the textures of each nail, bolt, nut, and washer, paired with visual function, are needed to successfully manipulate each item and tool into its correct and sequential whole. Additionally, neuromusculoskeletal and movement-related functions such as power, endurance, joint mobility and stability, as well as control of voluntary movement are all necessary to perform and complete this test. This assessment allows the examinee to draw on their previous experiences or skills of handling tools. It was designed to measure manipulative skill independent of intellectual factors, as comprehension of mechanical principles could simply be measured through question and answer tests. More importantly, how the examinee performs the manual task is the true essence of the test. Although how the examinee understands directions should be observed, it is not the intended ability to measure.
As therapists, we are going to be using this tool to assess manual dexterity of our participant. We first want to do this by making sure we are set up properly as therapists. We first want to make sure the assessment and the frame of the assessment is mounted on a sturdy table or workbench and cannot be moved or toppled over. Next, we'll be making sure the environment is properly set up. First, by making sure that all tools are accounted for within the set, as well as all the bolts, washers, and stopwatches, making sure that everything is prepared for the examinee and nothing needs to be fixed or obtained. This will make sure that there are no compromise factors when taking this assessment, so this assessment will stay standardized and we can get an accurate reading on our participant. And before handing this assessment over to our participant to begin, we must then make sure that each bolt is tightened to its capacity. We may use tools to make sure that every single bolt is tightened so it may not be loosened just by the twist of a hand. This ensures that the tools that are a part of this assessment must be used by the participant, and that way we can also get an accurate reading for the hand dexterity of the examinee. We then know that our stopwatch works, that everything is accounted for, that the tools are properly used, and that the assessment is ready for the participant to begin. Then we may bring the examinee in and explain 3 main points of this assessment. One is that they will be timed and their time starts the second they pick up a tool. Second is that their time stops the second they put down a tool. This ensures that the participant understands how they will be timed, when their time will start, when it stops, and how they know they are finished with the entirety of the assessment, as well as knowing how much time this assessment may or may not take. Also let the participant know that it will take about 15 minutes to do this assessment, but they are not limited on time. They can take as much time as they need to allow them to be comfortable with what they are about to do. We will then let the participant know how this assessment will be structured. First, we will let them know that the bolts are going to start off very big and get smaller as they go along. We also must let them know that they will be starting on the top row, working their way left to right, and they must complete that row before moving on to the second row and then the bottom row. So they will start from bottom to top, left to right. So the way to complete a row is by first picking up a tool and loosening each bolt in concession until you can unscrew with their hand and they can take the bolt completely out of the frame. Once each bolt is out of the frame on the very top row, they may move on to unscrewing and loosening the second row's bolts from left to right, then their hand. So once each row is complete and loosened and it is completely empty, they may move on to putting them in on the right side. So this time on the right side, they'll be putting the bolts back in, making sure the heads of the bolts are facing inwards, but they'll be starting from bottom to top. So they'll be starting on the very bottom row with the smallest set of bolts, and they'll be working their way from right to left. They will use their hands to screw the bolts in, and then the tools to tighten them, and that is how they complete a row. Once the bottom row is completely screwed in and tightened, they may move on to the second row and do the same thing. Then the third row, they make sure that they're screwed in, tightened, and then once they are done and the wrench is down, the occupational therapist may stop the time. Whatever time they get on their stopwatch is the time we'll be using to score the participant.
Now we're going to talk about how to score the hand dexterity test. For this test, the examiner starts the stopwatch when the patient picks up the first tool and stops the stopwatch when the last bolt is tightened. The score that the patient receives is a percentile rank based on the time that it takes them to complete the test. The percentile rank can be found on a chart that's separated by group and sometimes gender. For instance, there are different charts for maintenance mechanics at a mass transport system in the Northeast, workers at a vocational rehab center in California who have back injuries, or physically handicapped trainees at a rehab in New Jersey, just to name a few. All of the different categories are listed in the manual for this exam. To find the percentile rank, simply find the correct chart, look at the time that your patient received, and then look at the corresponding percentile rank on that row.
And it's that time. It's turbo review time of the Bennettt Hand-Tool Dexterity Test. The purpose: help employers determine skill set. It helps clinics determine progress with fine motor coordination and strength. This test measures the level of proficiency in using ordinary mechanics tools. Source and cost. Costs about $300 to $500 depending on source. Sources include Lafayette Evaluation or even Walmart. Occupation, work. It also focuses on job performance and maintenance. The population design is from ages of a high schooler to adulthood. This test is best used for people who use tools occupationally or recreationally, such as electricians or plumbers. Client factors. The client should remember the instructions that were given at the start of the assessment. The client should also be able to use hands and feel the texture of each tool. The client should have visual function. The client should be able to perform neuromusculoskeletal movements. Performance skills. This test allows the examinee to draw on their previous skills with tools. How the examinee understands the directions is not the intended ability to measure. How to administer the assessment. 1. Mount or bolt the frame on a sturdy table or workbench. 2. Check the environment to make sure all tools are properly set up and prepared for the examinee to perform the test without any compromised environmental factors. 3. Stopwatch required for the administrator. 4. Ensure all the bolts are on the left upright with the heads of the bolts on the inside. 5. The patient will loosen each bolt on each row, then tighten them with their fingers. They will use the appropriate tools to ensure proper working order of each bolt. Time recorded based on time it takes for tester to complete the task. How to score the assessment. The amount of time it takes the examinee to remove the nuts and bolts from the left upright and mount them on the right upright. Use the total time and the manual to score patient with a percentile rank.